Hi guys, Spanners here. It's the last race review of the season. Welcome to the shed. I mean, it's not a shed anymore. It's a dining room. It used to be a shed, but the shed isn't a place. It's a people. It's a dedicated crew that believe in the silly dream of building an independent sports fan community around F1. It's a place where people can have company online with like-minded friends. It's a place to be creative, and it's a place to fail gloriously. And it is weird that this project has gone this well, even during the times that it's gone really, really badly. But I promise, whether it's been good or bad, I actually really try quite hard. Mostly. It's a varied show with lots of different voices. I hope you've enjoyed spending this season in the company of Missed Apex Podcast. No, you're a cringe LinkedIn post. We didn't make 10 million, by the way. That was our aim for the end of the season, was 10 million downloads. We have got to 9,927,826. Not bad for a number 4 podcast. Welcome to the Abu Dhabi Race Review. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. Today, we'll be talking about some key things that I reckon that Max was right to be surprised by the penalty. I think that McLaren have pulled off a minor miracle with a caveat. Ferrari, even though they are the most improved squad of 2024, froze today in the challenge of attacking McLaren, and Lewis showed that with the car underneath him, he's still one of the very best. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners, so let's be friends. We are joined in the shed by Matt Trumpets.
The only thing worse than too many races is no racing at all.
Matt, I am such a hypocrite. I did like this TikTok that got like tens of thousands of views where I was going, actually guys, there might be too many F1 races and the specialness of it has gone and there's triple headers. I actually have a family, you know, but now like the second the races ended and I was looking into the void of the off season, I was like, oh my God, there's no F1.
It's forever to the next race.
There's one Formula E race and all they do is smash into each other. By the way, Formula E was pretty good too.
Yeah, no, I was following along vicariously because I was at work. But we've got Daytona coming up. I think former F1 driver Kevin Magnussen might be there. So there are some bright spots on the racing calendar, even for your Formula One fan. But yeah, March is a long time away, isn't it?
And we're joined by a very sensible panel today. So our first very sensible person is pit lane reporter Antonia Rankin. Hello, Antonia.
Hi. Yeah, no, I have no family nor any social life. So screw all of that. More races, Formula E, Formula One, GT racing. Give it to me.
I will bring up again that it is like tacos. So I think there is a limit to how many tacos I would want. But in reality, if you keep giving me tacos, I will keep eating tacos.
I have a better metabolism than you. So it's like if N is the number of races you want, I want N+1 always.
Okay,
N+2 even. Let's put a formula on it.
I'm so sure I just got body shamed there, and that's not okay.
Yeah, right. For those of you listening now who didn't hear the pre-show, there were some very offensive remarks both about my personal life and my personal Instagram pages and my Scottish heritage. So yeah, I'm going to put in a metabolism joke. I deserve it.
No, that was all pre-show. None of that is canon. But we're also joined by another very sensible person, Alex Jeansy Van Gene. Hello, Alex.
I was so sensible today that I actually was. I found today an emotional day. I mean, I know you have no emotion.
Oh, come on.
But coming to the end of the era that was the Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes era, and watching. I actually watched the entire F1 broadcast today. I haven't done that since like 2020. So it was quite an emotional day. It's been a hell of a last sort of 9 years, and it's awesome. And you know, we head on into the future, and I'm going to get rid of this purple shirt soon, and it's going to be red, which is good. Red's my favorite color, so it's fine.
Do you know what? Because Alex said that, we'll divert into the Lewis Hamilton stuff. But I think the big story of today is, of course, McLaren picking up the constructors title, but I'm going to delay it twice. So my original plan was to delay it for the lap 1 chaos, because we like talking about those kind of things and racing incidents. But let's divert to the Lewis Hamilton thing. So, Alex, I know you were feeling quite emotional. I actually don't have a lot of sentimentality around this. I think if he'd have left Mercedes a year ago, 2 years ago, even 6 months ago, I'd be feeling it more. But this year has been so weird that actually I'm not. I actually found it a little bit odd about how full on Mercedes were this weekend.
I mean, it has been weird. It has been a strange year, and I think part of that is down to how early that it got announced that Lewis was leaving. Yeah. I think if it had got announced that Lewis was leaving during the summer break, it'd have been a very, very different season. But obviously, it got leaked, and it just had to come out, and it was what it was. But there's still a big thing in there, and it's a case of, okay, it might be that's all leaving us. That's all leaving and all moving apart, and it hasn't been the smoothest year. But the things between Lewis and Bono, and we've seen more of Bono this weekend than we have the entirety of the year. And what I've learned is Bono is terrible on camera, bless him, but that's great because you get his true, raw, how he feels. Yeah. And the piece with Martin Brundle and Lewis driving around Silverstone in 3 of the cars was brilliant. And yeah, it's one of those things. It's an end of an era. Mercedes and Mercedes have been part of Lewis Hamilton's story since he started in F1. Since he had his first F1 test, he's never driven a different engine. So it's going to be a really interesting change.
Okay, let's lay off Bono. Not everybody is a media personality or media trained.
That wasn't a dig at him.
He's just Lewis's friend that helps him out during the races and does an engineering job, and he keeps getting thrust on camera and definitely tries his best. But like whenever they put him up on the podium, you could see he's like, somebody tell me how to enjoy this correctly. I think it's very endearing. Not everyone is supposed to be a celebrity, Antonia.
Yeah, but someone like Lewis Hamilton has made himself a celebrity, and
there's a contract.
By the nature of Lewis, we've followed him so closely throughout his career, more so in these past few years since Abu Dhabi, watching him and seeing how his career has unfolded since a huge setback like that. So we've lived it with him. We've seen him struggle. We've been there with him whilst he has. And so seeing this move to Ferrari unfold and throughout the rest of the season, see how hard he has struggled, his comments on the radio, I think there's an element of us as fans being like, right, off you go then. We believe that this is the right thing for you as well.
I just have an issue with the whole thing of, it was like an obituary. It was as if Lewis was about to wander into the carousel in Logan's Run at age 30 and be zapped and killed. He's not going anywhere. He's not dying. He's not retiring. He's going one garage down.
It did have a retirement feel to it. The whole parking him on the grid at the end, the donuts. For me, that was a bit like, he's still going to be here next year, but I guess it's a send-off, and it's an important partnership in the history of F1, so it is a historic thing.
That's the thing. So much of Lewis's identity as an F1 driver is through Mercedes. It's like you said, Alex, it's been through his whole career. So a big move like this not only speaks volumes for how much he's been struggling, but it's a huge change for the whole grid. I was watching the race today, looking at his name in turquoise, and I was thinking that's going to be really weird seeing it in red. And we're not in the paddock, right? We don't know what it's like to actually be around them, to have literally lived it for these past years with him. And it is a huge change. And with such a big personality in the sport, it would be like if Max Verstappen left Red Bull, everyone would go, okay, right.
I mean, we've seen this story before. We've seen Vettel leave Red Bull, saw Ricciardo leave Red Bull, but the Mercedes-Hamilton partnership got celebrated because it is world record. It is record-breaking partnership. And I think Formula One was correct to highlight it. For myself, honestly, and I think Vanjie may have put his finger on it, that because we found out so early in the season, we had a whole season to kind of price that move in. So for me, I was like, oh, well, let's see. He's going to someplace that will pay him more money and validate his post F1 existence in a way that his current job did not. I mean, if I was in that position, I'd be pretty happy about that move. I'd like to make that kind of money for a change.
But this is straying into season review stuff. So Matt, we will get on in the week, and we'll do more of a season review. I do want to talk about the race.
I will say, watching the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, seeing Lewis leave Mercedes at the same place where his career arguably took an unchangeable turn that he could never come back from.
Too soon.
there was a real hard symmetry to it that was actually quite difficult to watch. You know, seeing him race around that exact corner where he lost his world record breaking possibility of a championship, knowing that next time he's there, it will be in a red car.
My lingering thing of all of this was there was a radio message at the end where Toto Wolff thanked George Russell for doing the things they asked with the setup and with parts. And you go, what happened there? You know, they were so gutted that Lewis didn't get his qualifying performance in. They sent him out too late. They sent him out at the exact moment that Magnussen put a bollard in the middle of the track. If you tried a million times to ruin Lewis Hamilton's lap by putting a bollard slightly into the track, you'd never do it.
It would have hit the. Sorry, Matt.
Go ahead.
It would have hit the front wing and flown off into the thing and would have been fine. Yeah. It would never ever go under the car, and it goes under the car. And obviously, that destroys the entire aero because he was up at that point. He was like 2/10 up, so he was clearly and easily in, and then had nothing going for the final two corners.
But isn't that the haunting symmetry with it all? How everything just fell into the place in the exact wrong way. And that's why probably as fans, we've come round to the fact that he's not going to be with Mercedes anymore. Because we've been beaten down with him every time that he has. Seeing that Bullard go right in his car at that exact point because they sent him out too late. All of the stars aligned in the exactly wrong way, in the exact way that they did on this race 3 years ago.
Last question to Matt. Matt, right?
Yeah.
Okay. They were so passionate about giving Hamilton a good car for his send-off. Does it feel like the question would be, where was that energy? Like, it feels like they were going out of their way to say, no, we've actually tried this week. So what have you been doing all the previous weekends then?
Well, I mean, he's leaving. Russell is staying.
Correct,
would be
yeah.
answer number one. Answer number two is an interesting little twist for the testing that's coming up. Namely, you can't run parts unless they've been part of a race weekend. So there may have been some special parts on the car this week. And remember, there was a couple of years ago, it was remarkably heavy and had weird testing equipment on it. And everyone was like, why is that? It's because of this rule about the testing that's coming up. But I got to say, I think for Lewis, it's got to be incredibly emotional. He's worked so tightly with that group for so long and they've had so much success. For him, I get the emotion. But I'm just... honestly, from the outside, looking at how Mercedes chose, and it was a choice they made, to wind this down rather than keep him on, I'm not sad. I'm excited for him to go to Ferrari and do something new.
I don't know.
And I bet he is too.
I've been working with you for 10 years and Van Gien for 7 years, but parting with you guys could be, I think, only rivaled by the sweet release of my inevitable death. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. I'm desperate to talk about McLaren, but I'm gonna talk about the first lap incidents because that's a great talking point. It's something that we can argue about. I actually think I'm the only Max sympathetic person in that whole turn one incident. So Max Verstappen said, I don't know the rules anymore. I don't understand why he got a penalty. I also think that Max Verstappen shouldn't understand why he got a penalty. I think he's right when he says, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to think now because things have changed so much. So I'm going to be the only pro Verstappen person on this panel as we ask,
whose fault is it?
Whose fault is it? So on the surface of it, guys, it looks like Verstappen really just mugged Piastri. Is there any further defense on that? Rankin.
You're not the only one. Me too. It was
okay.
lap one.
Interesting.
Very
Okay.
soon off. Of course, there's going to be slightly aggressive. And I say slightly aggressive because we've seen way worse. Yeah, he ran a little bit deep. He came across a little bit
Van
further than
Gien
he
is
needed
fuming.
to. He was defending. Yeah, Van Gien, wait your turn. Right. I honestly completely agree. And I think, yeah, if there was probably a penalty to be found in there, but I thought it was really harsh, a 10-second penalty for a lap one incident where it wasn't a dangerous maneuver. No one was ever going to get seriously hurt from that. I don't know. I think it was the FIA coming out with aggressive penalties to prove a point of how authoritative they are.
Yeah, Van Gien. The FIA stacked against Verstappen momentarily.
So the reason I think this one was penalised is because it was very clear cut. I think the reason they don't tend to penalise on the first lap is because it's usually in a bit of a mess and it's people bouncing off of each other. This was very clear. Max had the move done. It was going to be a really, really good move. And then he's hit the curb and it's jinked him out. And that's why he's gone and hit the side of Oscar. So that is a clumsy mistake that obviously I think part of it may have been punishing the result, but which I don't necessarily agree with. But it's one of those things of you can't just slam it in there, hit the guy and expect to get away with it. And also we heard them talk about during the race that the drivers have been asking for harsher penalties for collisions. And I think part of the reason is because drivers are fed up of Max Verstappen hitting them. So they're like, right, okay, I want these guys getting more of a penalty. And then
was it unanimous?
Drove into the back of a Williams and got the same penalty.
Was it unanimous, Alex?
That's the
Pardon?
thing. There were a lot of serious penalties generally throughout the whole race. I mean, the 10-second stop and go really was the cherry on top for me, because that's about as bad as it gets.
For Piastri.
But,
That's a safety-related one.
So that was for the loose wheel nut.
yeah, and I agree with that. But still shocking to see it be put in there. It's a harsh penalty. I just think for a lap one incident, I'm sure the drivers are pushing for harsher penalties, and a lot of that probably does root down to the fact that 99% of them have been talking about how Max's driving can be aggressive, which it can be, but that wasn't that bad. You don't look at the outcome of an incident, as the FIA have made very clear in their decision making before. It's the action itself that should be penalised, not the potential outcome. And I just don't think it was that bad. It's a lap one incident where they're all trying to make ground.
Matt.
Yeah, and I can understand why Max would very much want to play the lap one card, but then he also admitted it was his mistake and he apologized immediately after the race. If you need any reason for why he got a penalty for it, is because it was very, 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 very obvious. And not that I like this rule, but if you watch it back on replay, you can clearly see he was not ahead at the apex in any way, shape, or form, which has become sort of the weirdly defining rule at this point.
He also made it worse because he was all the way in alongside, realised it wasn't going to work, backed out, and because he backed out is why he hit his rear wheel and spun him out. So it goes down as a clumsy mistake. You know, listen, it happens and these things do happen, but I do think the penalties have got to be there. And I prefer a 10-second penalty for these incidents because a 5-second penalty can be easily dealt with by a little bit of pace. 10 seconds is actually a punishment because I think if they'd given him a 5-second penalty, it wouldn't have affected him too much today.
So the drivers were asking for more penalties for contact, and so it's all down to kind of the philosophy of your series. You could have a series. My goodness, I've watched a bunch of short oval racing in person in Suffolk, in Fox Hill this year, and there is no disincentive for contact, and the crowd is very, very happy about that. So we're talking about the soul of Formula One. How much contact do you want to discourage? Traditionally, it has been a non-contact sport, and on paper, things like karting are a non-contact sport. So joyfully, I find myself disagreeing with all of you, which is my absolute favorite thing. So I said, like, I sympathize with Max. I disagree with Antonia that it's not that bad. I think it's a textbook, you went in too hot and punted people. But I also disagree with the fact that, you know, Max shouldn't have found it harsh. Verstappen has been doing this maneuver for his entire career, and it has gone unpunished, and drivers have jumped out of his way. So what Verstappen wants to do is hold the inside line at all costs. You will never get the inside line from Verstappen because his plan is always to then run to the outside. So he'll have the inside, he'll guard you, but he will put himself in a position where he can brake so late that the only possible way he can make the corner is by running the other driver off track. And if that hasn't been punished, then Brazil, it wasn't punished. It's not punished even when he goes off track. It wasn't punished in Circuit of the Americas. Even when he goes all the way off track, it's not punished. But the absolute worst crime in Formula One is that mostly when he does it, people jump out of his way. So Verstappen is never driving into a car. He's driving into a space that was kindly vacated by another driver. And just like Picard with the Borg, we will draw a line here and no further. Piastri said no.
I agree with everything up until the Star Trek reference.
Oh, come on, the Borg, man.
No one does Star Trek. Anyway, so
like it.
I agree with you on the fact that he is used to people jumping completely and utterly out of his way, and he's not going to get that from Oscar, especially because Oscar didn't even think that Max was part of his race. If Max was still fighting for this championship, he wouldn't have made that move. So if he was going into this race, leading the championship, but having to still finish well in this race to win the championship, he wouldn't have made that move. But also, I think he is starting to upset a lot of the drivers. I think a lot, especially now that we're going to get closer, I think we're going to have drivers not getting out of his way, especially a number 63 Mercedes. I don't think is going to give Max Verstappen any quarter. And the only thing I am sad about with Max's contact with Oscar was we didn't get anything on track between George and Max.
I do agree. I think it's interesting to see that a lot of drivers have kind of reached the end of their tether with it, given that a lot of them are being very hypocritical about the fact. You know, some people on the field do have a history of being very aggressive towards other drivers on track. And the FIA needs to make a decision. What kind of drivers do they want in F1? Do they want aggressive, win at all cost Michael Schumachers? Or do they want Valtteri Bottas's, who are good, very good, and they'll get the job done, staying within all lines, etc., etc. But I do agree with what you said, Vanjeen, and I think it's really interesting. Max wasn't in the championship fight there, but it doesn't stop a driver from wanting to win the race. I was speaking to a driver at the Jeddah Grand Prix for my series a couple of weeks ago, and they
you're
didn't
an
enter the car
internationally
because
renowned pit lane reporter.
Yes, of course. Let me just sprinkle that fact in there. I was chatting to one of the drivers, and he's a friend of mine, actually. No, but they didn't enter their car in the race because they'd already won the championship, and they didn't bother, right? This driver was itching, watching the action, because all he wanted was to jump in and take part in the race. Championships are bigger picture things. All these drivers want is to win races, to have some great battles and come out on top. It's the competitivity that drives them, not necessarily the end result. So of course Max was still competitive. He's a driver. I don't think that's a fault of his.
Competitivity is definitely not a word, for the record, before we get any emails. Alex, just want Matt to get in, please.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to get in. Am I the only one that remembers there was one driver out of the 20 who didn't want the harsher penalties?
Which one? Which one was it?
I'm not sure, but we could probably speculate successfully at this point. But I think Max was on it. Like, he got signs dead to rights at the start. But the problem for him is that I think Red Bull was generically the third fastest car behind the Ferrari and the McLaren. And he saw that door open for Piastri, and he knew he was never going to beat Norris. But like, that just beckoned. And by the time he realized it wasn't going to work, there was no getting out of it.
And I think that raises a really interesting question from your point, Matt. Is this the last we'll see of really, really intuitive, intelligent driving Max Verstappen? We've seen it with other drivers in the past. There's even been rumors now that he's having a child, that he might even be retiring, given his comments about how sick and tired of everything that he is.
We lost another good one. We lost another one.
I think it's a bit of
trap.
a reach, but that's the thing.
Oh my God.
With a child, does it change how a driver races?
Yes,
I think it's a really
it
interesting
changes
debate.
everything. Oh my God. Yeah, having a kid. I know he's already a stepdad and will have been playing a fatherly role. But like, as soon as you have a kid, everything changes. You know, like, even when we do karting or whatever, like, you fly through a corner, and when Vanjeen hits you into a wall, you go, oh, wow, that is actually like a risk, not just to me, but to my children. And I ended up taking out a life insurance policy before the last time I went go-karting with Alex. Literally, and made sure it covered.
By the way,
go-karting
that had
death.
nothing to do with me being on track, and entirely because it was a slightly faster go-kart and had slightly less protection.
Okay. For those watching on the video, hands up if your wheel flew off and you tumbled into the wall at full speed. Put your hand up, Alex.
You took it out way before then.
Put your hand up, Alex. That's what happened. I've lost track. Who wants to speak next? Matt.
Well, I just want to ask Antonia, you're talking about kids here, which, is generally accounting for a tenth or two amongst the more fatherly drivers. But how much do you think this kind of driving is down to the fact that Max has had the margin? Like, is there a ratio between how much competitive advantage he has and how few incidents he has with other drivers. If he's as hard pressed at the start of next season by McLaren as he is now, are we going to see the old Max return?
From every angle, there is now consequence to Max's actions. He hasn't had we've talked about this on the show before, how Max could start from the back of the grid and get up to first because they would move out of his way. The drivers would say to themselves, I'm not going to waste my tyres on this guy. I'm not racing against him. And voila, he'd be at P1. But now he's got the McLarens, he's got the Ferraris. He'll have Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari at his neck, hopefully, again. So if he does anything risky, not only will he have to deal with the fact that someone's going to have to fight him back on it, but the fact that if he gets into another, God forbid, horrendous incident like the one at Silverstone, there is a lot on the line here, and there is now a higher likelihood of an incident like that occurring.
Okay, but we're all happy that that was a penalty because honestly, a lot of Max Verstappen fans are obviously the same as an extreme end of Lewis Hamilton fans who will just defend their driver to any extent. But of the Verstappen fans that we know and that we're friends with, they all were like, well, yeah, he's obviously just Alex, this is the most obvious that is one particular person's fault incident we've had in a long time. My only question to you would be, why wasn't Piastri obligated to give him way more room? Because Piastri was he left him a little room, but there's this philosophy, whether you do the Apex stuff or not, that the outside car generally has to go all the way to the outside. And Piastri didn't do that. He wanted to take the racing line and gave Max a little room, enough room on the inside.
To be fair, Piastri saw him coming and did actually open up the steering.
Yeah.
He did actually give more room and enough room. He hasn't got to sort of, again, like Max would like him to, jump out the way, complete side of the track. He gave him actually enough room to run a little bit wide. But instead, it's only happened because Max hit the curb, backed out, and because he hit the curb, backed out, understeered, and hit the rear. It was a series of events that is down to his fault, and that's what happens, and that's just how it ends up. So, you don't have to fully move out the way. You don't have to fully move away from where that person is, because you own that section of track. We've talked about the lane system many, many times, and that's just how it goes, unfortunately. And I was surprised it was a 10-second penalty, but then for them to talk about giving harsher penalties made more sense. So I have no issue if the penalty was 5 seconds or 10 seconds. I agree harsher penalties should be given for incidents like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think from Max's point of view, it's pretty clear. He sees this as a minor mistake he made on the way into turn one. And so he's a bit surprised because usually you get some degree of forgiveness there. But also that degree of forgiveness is generally associated with a lot more chaos than we saw in that incident. That was very clearly just a bad judgment on his part. The collision sent Piastri all the way to the back and had potentially a direct influence on the Constructors' Championship. How are they not going to give that a penalty?
To be fair, on the terms of penalties, and I might be massively in the minority here, I miss drive-through penalties. I think a drive-through penalty for something like that is a really, really good penalty to give because you can negate these time penalties, and you had to give them within 3 laps as well. But you can save your race with a time penalty. You can go really, really long, save yourself some space, and the 10-second penalty is more like a 6-second penalty. With an instant penalty like a drive-through, it's actually a more severe thing, and then you'll stop people doing silly things, hopefully.
I think that's a really interesting point to make, especially now that the field are so much more. It's a 5-second penalty isn't a punishment anymore so much as a slap on the wrist, because as we saw, I won't get into the whole scope of the fuller picture of the season, but there were times when, for example, Max, when he was in his dominance, would get even a 10-second penalty. And by the end of the race, it would be as if he hadn't, because he's finishing 20 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack anyway. So I think, especially with the conversations about how the FIA are dealing with incidents, it's going to be important for them to have a look at not only how they award penalties, but what they're awarding. I mean, it's very common in other series to be given 30, 40-second penalties, which, whilst harsh, would add another little sprinkle of interest to the spectacle.
All right, then. In great Missed Apex fashion, we have spent a lot of time talking about the person who didn't win the race. Maybe it's time we talked about the person who did. And that would be Lando Norris at McLaren. What an amazing race for him and for the team. Did anyone here have any doubt at all they would pull this off?
As long as he got to turn one, and he did, because obviously getting to turn one in the lead has been an Achilles heel of Lando Norris, especially this season. And he did it, and he led, and he was never in any trouble. He built the right kind of gap that you need to mitigate for any circumstances that come, for an undercut, for a safety car. He managed that race perfectly. I mean, we thought it was going to be this way because practice went McLaren's way, and they definitely looked like the fastest car. And then Lando's qualifying lap wasn't a perfect qualifying lap. He had a massive swapper towards the end of the lap, and still put it on pole. So he obviously did the right thing with the right car at the right time, and it was great to see. He was very happy, very in control, and I really hope, as a long-term McLaren fan, I really, really hope that McLaren with Lando and Oscar can continue that form into next year.
I'm sure a lot of you guys listening will disagree with this, but I've been quite forgiving on Lando because whilst he has made a lot of mistakes, and you can say he's been in F1 long enough to know better, it's the first time he has ever been running at the front of the grid. Bear in mind, so recently, these McLarens were right at plumb last. They were not doing well. So there are some very steep and hopefully very quick learning curves involved for Lando. And I think he's taken them all in his stride. And a race like Abu Dhabi has shown the extent to which that's true. He did such a good job. And you know it's a mature drive when you don't hear about the leader for the majority of the race, because they're just controlling the race, doing their own thing, ignoring everything that's happening behind them from all ends from McLaren. It was brilliantly executed today. And I think for a team like McLaren with so much history and so much not going their way in the past few years, I absolutely loved to see them win this championship.
What a lovely positive thing you've just said there, Antonia. Shame if someone were to ruin it. I mean, the championship's over. The championship that really matters is finished, and they blew it. They blew any chance of the Drivers' Championship. Norris made mistakes. McLaren, it feels like a mean thing to say, but you've just gone on about how, like...
I thought we weren't doing season review stuff here. That's the woulda, shoulda,
you're
coulda
right.
for the Drivers'
Okay,
Championship.
so in this race then, Norris showed that there's nothing technically stopping McLaren dominating. Right? Red Bull didn't look that good. McLaren looks good. Lando Norris knows how to drive a race car.
Amazing what happens when the pressure's off.
He fell away when the pressure's on. And then this whole thing of, I'd be ready now. And if you're going to say, well, this result proves that he would be ready in the future, well, there was no pressure on this one. Like one of the cars had to finish.
One result means nothing.
But like I've said, Lando has never, ever been in this position before. So as an equivalent, he's had no build up through the midfield. Don't shake your head, Van Gien. I'm talking.
Verstappen had never been in that position before.
No, but
when he won.
He technically did, because he'd just come off of other series where he was doing very well. And there was pressure on. Yes, it's a different stage, but it's the same thing. It is the same. Lando was used to coming home and nobody patting him on the shoulder, nobody talking to him. So yeah, he's done pretty good.
Unfortunately.
Right. Matt, no, let's go for Matt.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, because I want to get in here because I want to correct some what I believe are misapprehensions.
From
I
Antonia.
watched Lando's interview after the race. And the thing that he said was that based on this season, and specifically based on the result here with them winning the championship, he thinks he has the knowledge to go forth and win the actual drivers next season. But he also very clearly said it showed him what he needed to work on in order to do that. And I think a lot of people might have missed that little bit of nuance right there.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Well, that's easy to say. If you're going to base it on past evidence, you'll go, well, it didn't look good this season. He has to change our minds to say he's now a contender. But to win this Constructors' Championship today, he did what they needed to do. So that's great. Actually, I just have a bit of an issue with, I don't want to move on to Ferrari if you're not ready for me to.
I know. I want to make one horrifying
Go
point.
on it. Horrifying point.
Horrifying
Why?
point. This is like, you know how I love horrifying stats.
Mm-hmm.
It's 26 years since McLaren won their last championship. Neither of their drivers was even alive the last time they won a
Lando was
Constructors
13
Championship.
days old, apparently.
Oh, was he 13? It's basically
I
not
cried when I
alive then
heard
for
that
anyone
stat.
who's ever had a kid.
Yeah, my 14-year-old's blatantly not really alive, so definitely 13 days doesn't count.
But I'm going to argue that it mattered a lot to McLaren, regardless of how other people feel about it.
I think the Constructors' Championship matters to every single team except Red Bull, because how impassioned Charles Leclerc was about what was going on during the race. He did the same thing a couple of years ago when it was close to the championship fight. So I think Red Bull have conditioned us to believe people don't care in the Constructors' Championship, but it's what pays the people in the team's bonuses. And I tell you what, they care because they're not on £100,000 a year contracts. They're on mechanics contracts. So it's that kind of thing. And I just believe that the Constructors' Championship actually did mean something. But as far as Lando's concerned, these guys have been racing since they were children. They are used to the pressure of leading races. And to be fair, once the visor goes down, a race is a race. And I still believe Lando should have made a better of this season.
I think you are so right. Not about the Lando thing, you were completely wrong. About the Red Bull thing. Making us believe
Oh, my sweet summer
that they don't
child.
care. I know, I'm so kind to you, aren't you? Yeah, no, I just think, right, Lando today said, I'm going to win the big one. Next year, I want to win the big one, the Drivers' Championship. Is the Constructors not the big one, given that it dictates budget caps, salaries, wind
Not for the
tunnel
drivers.
testing time? Of course, because they exist in their own world, which isn't a bad thing at all, necessarily. But Charles Leclerc's face getting out of that car, oh my goodness. And for me, that's when it clicked just how much it meant to them. Because it's such a huge deal for a team like McLaren, like Ferrari, who haven't won it in so long, seeing how much of a difference it would make to them. And I've even noticed it going into different teams' HQs, looking at their facilities. The difference,
Because
right?
you're an internationally recognized reporter who goes into various facilities.
See, I don't even need to say it myself anymore, do I? I've got like
No,
a little
you don't.
birdie on
People
my
say it
shoulder.
for you. That's how well you've done.
Thank you. It means I get to be modest. But I went to Williams's HQ this week.
Of course you did. Yeah.
Great people there, right? I absolutely love
Close
Williams.
personal
But
I've
friends.
been there three
Yeah.
times, haven't I?
but seeing how their facilities are compared to the front running teams, you can tell how much even these 10 million between P6 and P7 in the championship, for example, would mean to them. And it's so gut-wrenching once you fully comprehend that there are actually 2 championships going on here.
Okay, Matt, want to talk about the race?
You want
Ferrari.
to talk about the race?
Well,
I was gonna come up with a fun fact. It was only half a
Yeah,
point-ish
go on,
a race between McLaren and Ferrari. But then the question becomes, you want to talk about the race?
I do. Race
You want
review.
to talk about the race?
Yeah.
It was it was exciting because of all the chaos on lap 1. But it wasn't really that much of a race. Everybody kind of finished where they should have finished. And there wasn't, what can I say? We have the woulda, coulda, would Leclerc have done something more if he'd not gotten that penalty? Could Haas have done something more if he'd not gotten that penalty? But it was one of those classic Formula One races where it's a one-stop, overtaking was possible but not easy. And you had the cars pretty well sorted by order. I mean, where was the drama for you?
For me, it was, like you said, in the coulda, woulda, shouldas. Watching Perez go out was a really
Oh my
interesting
God.
turn
It was
for
not
me.
interesting. It was lame. He gave up.
Spanners, I'm talking.
He just gave
I'm
up.
talking, Spanners.
There was
Wait your
nothing wrong with
turn.
that car.
I'm holding the talking object.
I've got the
Right.
Everything Perez does is lame.
Oh, man. That car
with
was
Sergio
fine.
Perez, I was looking forward to seeing the version of him that he was when he was at Racing Point, out of a seat the last race of the season, putting on the best show of his life. Because, right, I sat today having not spoken very kindly about Perez generally this season, and I think rightly so. He was so blimming good. He used to be so good, and every ounce of that instinct seems to have left him. So yeah, that was lap 1. That was a bit of a crap for me.
Or he had really good cars that probably could have done better in other people's hands.
Oh, my God. Right.
No, I did feel for Perez. Perez had his one last shot to try and actually do something decent, and then gets bashed out of the way by Bottas. What is it with everyone who isn't probably going to be on the grid next year? Everyone who's not going to be on the grid next year had an absolute disaster today. What a nightmare! But the status I always put on Abu Dhabi is, what if this race was in the middle of the season? If this was a middle of the season race with nothing at stake, this would have been quite a dull race. It's all the stakes always ramp up with Abu Dhabi because there's always something going on and something to celebrate or something to remember or something like that, or a championship and that kind of stuff. That's the thing that always brings it up for Abu Dhabi. But it is one of those things. However, I do believe the changes they made to the track a few years ago have definitely helped, because you wouldn't have got that amazing move by Lewis on George Russell.
Yeah, Karun Chandhok was talking about this because he was on the part of the team who spent hours and hours and hours and hours redesigning this track. I think there were great improvements, but we kind of saw this in the past couple of seasons with Max tying up the championship relatively early. Abu Dhabi last year was nothing to write home about. I completely agree. But what a way to end the season. It's such a cool circuit, with all the screens over the track. The drivers love it. There's like a million fireworks at the end. And I think in recent years, it's been really important for fans to recognize, especially existing fans, to recognize the importance of spectacle in F1 and theatrics and general just atmosphere, because it's something that until recent years we've kind of ignored or not talked about enough or fully appreciated, because it is peripheral. But at an event like Abu Dhabi, it is what makes the race.
And I will say, if we are going to talk about racing a little bit and about how the track is good, Leclerc's opening lap was pretty special. And that absolutely made the race. That plus the Piastri thing made the stakes for that race higher, even though, if you're looking at it from the outside, you're like, yeah, there's not really a chance for them here unless the Mercedes engine goes boom.
The absolute excellence of Charles Leclerc on that opening lap was absolutely fantastic. He made all the right decisions. He saw everything happening in front of him, and he made the right decisions at the right time to make the absolute maximum of what happened. So with all the smoke going up in the air through turn one, he picked the right place to go. And then coming up to, I don't know the corner names, after the first straight, he saw everyone going over to the left. And he's like, something's going to happen here. He went straight to the right-hand side, kept it pinned, went right round the outside like it was a wet race, and absolutely nailed it.
That's like
awesome. I'm now in the top 10.
That was like a VIP lane. When you pick the truck lane in a traffic jam and no one wants to be in the slow lane, but then suddenly the truck lane darts forward and you gain a mile in a traffic jam. That's what Leclerc did there. And I think he was up to P8, wasn't he? Pretty quickly.
Yeah, P8 I think after the first lap or something, it was absolutely ridiculous. He, in my opinion, which as it happens is not such a humble opinion, is the driver of a generation. He is just so good, but he has more cracks than most drivers have. And that's something that's, in 2019, for example, really, really let him down. He was stellar in 2019 until he wasn't, until he was having incidents like the ones that he had at Parabolica, at Monza, rookie error that he made. And he has just flashes of not showing his true ability. I think he's great until all of a sudden he's not.
Okay, so this is a broader conversation. I've done a few TikToks on it because I'm a little bit of a TikTok influencer right now. So at Missed Apex F1. I think this also boils down to what's happened to Colapinto. There is a line where being peaky doesn't benefit you overall. So I don't think you can go for the 100% shot every single time. It's like me at golf. So me at golf, all I do is I get the big stick out and I want a 300-yard drive every single time. That's all I'm going for. And you will see me put 4 balls in the opposite fairway on I'll be on hole 1 and I'm on the 10th fairway, and then I'll hit the 6th one down the middle and I'll be like, yeah, I am real good at golf. I'm so good at golf. So for me, there's a lot of rookies that are like me at golf. So there was De Vries, you had Sargent, Mazepin, Schumacher, Colapinto, unfortunately, has gone into that. Leclerc isn't quite in that, Antonia. Leclerc is just dances on the border of that balance?
There's a tightrope act to F1 driving,
is.
and you either walk perfectly along it or walk too confidently and just step over that edge and make a mistake. The fact that you would liken Charles Leclerc to,
My golf swing.
oh my goodness, Nikita Mazepin, who couldn't even
No,
lunge close to that line if he tried.
No, I'm saying it's a spectrum, isn't it?
It
And
is,
he's in the middle of that spectrum. He's like a
He's on the spectrum somewhere. Yeah. He the thing is with Charles Leclerc, I think now he's trying to find that balance and doing so relatively successfully, but he's still not in the best car in the grid. And until he is, and like we've seen with Lando, we were not going to know how he handles it and how well does he have the driving talent of a world champion, or is he just a great driver?
He's a high functioning crashy driver. That's what I would say.
Charles Leclerc has still never put together an entire season. Doesn't matter where he finishes or how good Ferrari is or isn't, he has not put together a perfect season where he has done everything he can within the realms of that car. He has had these days where he has been incredible, like he was today. He was phenomenal today, well-deserving driver of the day. And to be fair, having it as Charles, Lewis and Lando, perfect stat. I wouldn't have had anything different. But he cannot keep it up. It's why I think once Lewis...
He's probably nervous.
Which is why I think once Lewis is at home in that car and hopefully gets a big uplift from being somewhere new in a new environment, I don't think Leclerc can beat him. Because I just don't think he can keep it going over the course of a whole season. Unless having a 7-time world champion as your teammate elevates you to another level.
Which
but
it might
we
do.
won't know that.
Okay, so my specific aim for this show was to make sure it didn't descend into a season review. I have completely failed. Matt, I have failed. There's no...
You have.
Yeah.
And looking at the people you invited to be on the show, can I ask myself, am I surprised?
Also, I lost
No.
control as a host. Like, I've done poorly in that way. However, to bring it back to this race, Alex made a great point.
Okay.
His only ever great point, which is that everybody who
At last!
who was either moving on or leaving seemed to have a really disappointing race. So I'm going to start with Colapinto because that's an easy one. He was really emotional, almost to the point of sounding like he was going to be in tears, saying, "Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm not anti-Williams. I'm sat here with a Williams Racing t-shirt." I loved Colapinto. I thought he was a breath of fresh air, but he knows. He knows he's messed it up. And he was, it is that thing of just, he's put it in the wall too many times. Teams lost interest. Those things correlate perfectly. If he had just brought it to 90%, if he'd have just hit a 5-iron off the tee, Spanners. Oh, sorry, wait. Hit your iron off the tee, a 7-iron. You'd score better. He knows that he's messed it up. And James Vowles personally came on the radio pre-race to do that. So that, and then combined with the power and the power unit issue, it was a sad way, I think, for this bright young flame to be squished.
Which makes me really upset because, like you said, not only was he a breath of fresh air, he was really good when he was on form. But like a rookie, he was expensive, and that was very much not something that Williams could afford. So to see him at this race have a suboptimal ending, it was really difficult to watch, seeing how much it meant to him. And it's very rare that you see any F1 driver speak that way about F1. To say on the radio, knowing that that's publicly broadcast, just how much this has been a dream, how much it has made their life better. And it's so, I hate that you've said that, Spanners. I hate that you've said he's messed it up because I deep down know it's true.
It's true.
But also, so a lot of it was out of his hands. A lot of it was not his fault.
Yeah, except for crashing
Smashing
into the wall
multiple times.
I mean, the many
how much
crashes.
I like Colapinto, it was. And it's funny, you say most people don't make that kind of heart message. It's because he knew it was his last time in a Formula 1 car.
And James Vowles said it. Sorry, Matt. James Vowles said it. He went, "Oh, that's not how we wanted your last race in Formula 1 to end." It's like, James, stop. Just have someone else do the talking for you, James. I bet he's a brilliant team principal and race engineer, but just leave the saying things on TV to someone else. But also don't. Never, ever stop saying things on TV because I love you. You tell the truth by accident. Matt.
I find it frustrating because if he had those crashes and Albon had no crashes, then I'd be like, okay, fair enough. But Albon himself was hardly the perfect driver. And so what it tells me is that the Williams itself is a really peaky, difficult to drive car. And the fact that he was able to walk in and match Albon's performance was like staggeringly impressive. Crashes aside, I'm amazed if he doesn't wind up somewhere based on that performance.
That's what I mean when I say it wasn't entirely his fault, because it takes two to tango, or in this case, tango is rack up a $60 million damage bill. It was both of them making what looked like rookie errors. The only difference was Albon had no excuse. And
I don't know,
it was difficult over the course of the season, because seeing how good of a principal James was, I think he's been absolutely exceptional. Coming onto the radio saying that, not the best bit suboptimal thing to say. Bad job there. But Colapinto, I completely agree. I really, really, really do want to see him somewhere else. I really do.
Bro developed a Tech Pro addiction. It happens. It happens. He's like, oh man, I see that Tech Pro. I just got to get me some. Got to get me some
It's
Tech
almost
Pro.
like we need more teams.
Yeah.
If only.
To be fair, speaking of Tech Pro addictions, there's actually a car in one of the series I covered that's sponsored by Tech Pro, which I think is so
Have they crashed loads this season?
Yeah, I don't think that's
Look at the Tech Pro car and the Tech Pro barriers. Use Tech Pro. He's safe.
It's like being sponsored by duct tape. So, yeah, do you know what happens when our driver sticks it in the wall? We use duct tape. So we also had Gasly. We also had Bottas leaving, and I think Bottas has done one of the most dignified exit out of Formula One. He has been so honest. So he had that whole campaign of what's next, and he set up a charitable fund for people who were unexpectedly sacked. And he did give more details on this, which is he had an agreement with Fred Vasseur, basically that he was going to be the pillar of the team going forward. Fred left, and then with Audi coming in, he thought, I'm going to be the framework. I'm going to be the absolute stanchion of the Audi project, and it didn't work out. And when he was asked, is this your last race? He said, it's not the end. So he's a guy that's got ambition to do it. But if you're going to send that signal that everybody should hire you and you should still be on the radar, maybe don't wipe out 10% of the field. It was a horrible race for Bottas. I mean, it wasn't a huge contact with Perez, and I'm still upset with the Perez retirement. Like, I don't understand. That looked like somebody who was desperate to retire, and it was the wheels
He
are
just
still
got
turning.
very gently spun round.
He had a clutch issue at the start, and then I think when he got wanged by Bottas, there was he couldn't get the clutch.
Yeah, no, I mean,
We believe you.
I had a clutch issue this morning. Yeah, same. That's
Like Fernando Alonso whenever he's in 11th place. Yeah. Oh, look, the car's broken.
Yeah, Perez did not want to finish that race. Oh, I've had a slight tap. No. It's toast. It's absolute toast. But I guess the funniest one was Bottas locking up his wheels and just drawing 11s down the track and wiping out Magnussen. And the thing is, I'd like to go, that's just one of those things. It could happen to anyone. But it's happened to Bottas a couple of times. Hungary 2021, when he did. Oh, come on.
I was about to say it's very uncharacteristic of Bottas, and then I forgot about Hungary 2021.
But it was like, we don't see that kind of full-on I just nailed someone. I'm trying to think of the last time I saw that. Was it Perez and Massa in Canada, where one driver just launched into another driver?
Oh my God, that was horrendous.
Yeah, it was like that. And thank goodness there was no consequences to it. But that could have caused a safety car. It didn't. It would have helped Hamilton if it did. And I would have been leading the conspiracy theories if it had.
Sorry, Paddy in the live stream.
Oh, hi, live stream.
Chat. I'm sorry, that's not fair. He's put Bottas, what's next? And put a picture up of the job centre.
No,
that's not fair, Paddy. Probably true, but not fair. Very funny.
That is very, very mean. You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. Thank you so much for spending the season with us. We've got a few more topics to get through, but I know from the graphics and the charts that, people might start to drift off as we head towards our hard limit of 1 hour. So thank you very much to our patrons who support us at /missed Apex. If you're on the fence about supporting us, winter is a really, really good time to support us because obviously our ad revenue drops. We're really, really lucky in our community that our Patreon community, especially in the Discord, tend not to abandon us over the winter because it's only like 10 days or something until winter testing. So if you would like to support us over this winter season, if you've been listening to us all year and you think, yep, that's a community I'd love to get involved in, patreon.com/missed Apex. It will be the top link. The only reason we've been able to do multiple shows a week this year and do timely race reviews and prioritize this over literally everything else in my schedule is because of the patrons. Patreon.com/missed Apex. Matt, race things.
Okay, I have a couple of race things. We have Hamilton. We've not really talked about his alternate strategy, but it was pretty clever.
Go.
We have Gasly. And then finally, you were giving Ferrari strategist a bad name, and I want to know why. But let's start with Hamilton. After what I think of this is like the lottery ticket qualifying for him. He's been doing how many qualifyings? If you do enough qualies, eventually weird stuff is going to happen to you, right?
Yeah.
This is exactly what I see here. And he's starting at the back and everyone's like, oh, well, that's it. It's Mercedes. It's race over. There's no way. And then they put him on your favorite, the hard tire, which how many times have I heard this complaint? Why did they put him on the hard tires? Because occasionally it works out like it did today. That's exactly why. And
So that tactic that didn't work 10 times. Yeah, but what about this one time?
Yeah, that's exactly it. If he just matched everybody else, would he have had the same performance as Leclerc? Maybe. Maybe he would have. But if we look at how Russell did in the race, then maybe not so much. So it was a challenge for him at the start. He couldn't gain as many places because he was on the hard tires, but he nabbed four spots right from the off. And then he just ran and ran and ran and ran. And even after Russell made his pit stop, he was matching Russell's time for a number of laps before he finally started to drop off.
I'm a little bit scared for Mercedes. And by a little bit, I mean like 0.1% because I'm a Ferrari fan. From the second the checkered flag dropped on Lewis Hamilton.
I got a message from one of my customers of him in a Mercedes shirt, and he literally took it off underneath with a Ferrari shirt.
I mean no hate to Mercedes. Honestly, I don't. But as much as I love various teams, I'll probably keep a soft spot for Mercedes going forward. But I won't overthink it. You know, I'm sat here in a Williams a shirt, and you know I've loved Williams for decades and decades and decades. But I do ultimately follow the drivers that I love. You know, if Mansell was driving a Red Bull, I'd be a Red Bull fan for the season. So I'm following Hamilton to Ferrari, and I have to say, all the Ferrari fans, I didn't know whether they were going to be like chill about this or whether they were going to be aggy. They have been universally brilliant online. In a space where I go online and people generally yell at me, the Ferrari fans have been so excited that Hamilton is going over. And when I've said, I'm Tifosi, I'm coming over, like what can we, what do I do? Am I welcome? And they've said, come on in, brother, come on in. So it's all been really, really cool. So I've been looking forward to that. But I have concerns about Mercedes for next season. George Russell. There's a lot of George Russell fans. Alex, you're a George Russell fan. How many times have we seen Russell up front with the big boys having qualified well, but not being able to keep up and fall back? And Hamilton, who has qualified like he's never, ever done a qualifying session in his life before, not even one single time. And yet they still end up like together on track. And Hamilton had so much more pace today. I don't think Russell can do the Sunday thing enough.
George still beat Lewis in the points 2 out of 3 seasons.
No, that is not the measure. From the Jensen Button rivalry, we know.
No. He actually did beat him 2 out of 3 seasons.
No, it doesn't matter. Total points is the only thing that matters. That's what the Jensen Button versus Hamilton thing taught me.
The metric is changing.
No, it was total points, and Hamilton has beaten Russell on total points, which I was assured.
Do you know that for a fact? Have you worked that one out already?
Yes, I have covered that off. Yeah, so just
really?
The overtake that he did in turn 9 on the final lap, put him ahead on the 3-year total.
So
Unfortunately, I have to sit there and call BS on that statistic.
No, of course. No, it's awful. It's an
kind of
awful.
BS. Just in case anyone doesn't know our joke. That's all. Because it's that case.
Everyone said Button beat him on points over 3 years, therefore Button was better.
Absolutely.
So Hamilton has won over points over 3 years, therefore he's better. Done deal.
Is
Matt.
that not the bare
Oh.
minimum for a 7-time world champion versus a 0-time world champion?
Is that not the bare minimum?
Yeah.
Matt.
Well, back to the racy stuff. You might be asking yourself questions such as, is Russell really up for it if Hamilton can catch him from that far behind on an alternate strategy? The issue for Russell wasn't could he manage the tires well enough in this race. The issue for Russell was in the form of Gasly in the pink Alpine hanging him up for some number of laps to about lap 14, I believe, when Gasly pitted. And that time loss was critical and the main reason why Hamilton, pitting much later on the medium faster tire that was also newer, not only was able to catch him, but able to make a stunning overtake in the last lap around the outside of turn 6, which was just, it made watching the whole race worthwhile, if you ask me.
I liked it. It was a fun chase.
I didn't really mean to kill the conversation with that.
It was a fun chase. And like we said earlier, suddenly Mercedes could give him a car, a rocket ship. He looked on form as well in Brazil on race pace 2. I will be really surprised if he goes to Ferrari as a welcomed son and is not able to go and push on and do well. I think, look, we've just had people posting like quotes. So Mia has just posted that Mercedes have implied that they're sacrificing Hamilton's races to develop things. And honestly, that would be completely fair. The second Hamilton
he's an
said,
employee.
the second Hamilton said he was off to Ferrari, he was completely fair game, and Russell was the main man. All I'll say is I am genuinely concerned if Russell is the faster of him and Antonelli next season, which he could well be. Antonelli could be a future world champion, but still come in and have a rookie season like Piastri had. If he comes in and has a rookie season like Piastri had, he's not going to be anywhere near George Russell. Mercedes are going to be dumping potential, but they could also be writing off 2025 because they know, according to Kyle says that it's a no-brainer. Mercedes are going to dominate everything in 2026.
To be fair, George was on pole the previous 2 races. George won one of those races. I think George is coming forward. I actually think Lewis leaving is the best thing for George Russell. I think a big part of George Russell is, I want to beat Lewis Hamilton. He's my hero and I want to beat him. And I think so much of it has been him dominated by that to then go, right, okay, I'm team leader now. I haven't got to worry about, okay, I've got to keep this kid behind me. But I think he'll have a different mindset finish. At least I hope so. As a Russell fan, I really hope so, because I think he's actually done a really good job.
Antonia, I know you've been distracted by the drawstring on your hoodie, but do you have a F1 point?
Yes, I do, right? Vanjeen, I swear to all that is good and unholy.
What have I done now?
What do you mean? Oh, Lewis Hamilton leaving is the best thing that's ever happened to George Russell. It is. He is now being compared to what? An 18-year-old? Of course, he is jumping over the moon himself firsthand. He is going to be absolutely ecstatic that the better driver is leaving the team. And now he, in his... I'm not going to lean into the rumors that he's the way he is, but, I'm sure he'll enjoy being the big cheese in the team now, and he'll have a rookie to teach and to have learned from him.
This year. Lewis has not been allowed to be in any of the meetings, as you would expect.
And yet his shadow has loomed over Russell as well, because of course he can't beat the 7-time world champion, despite said 7-time world champion. No, he didn't though.
Not over 3 seasons. Not on points.
Spanish.
I'm gonna quit this podcast and never return. I am infuriated by each and every one of you, other than Trumpets.
Matt.
Well, I guess it's up to me then to convince Antonia to stay. No, it's an interesting thing. Gigi in the chat has just pointed out one thing that Mercedes will absolutely not have next season is data from Lewis Hamilton. And you do sort of wonder, will that make any kind of a difference? But to me, the larger issue with them is if they're bringing in Antonelli next season, to me, that's Mercedes essentially writing this regulation set off. Because why would
yeah,
you bring
agree.
a
Yep.
rookie
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
into a team that you think can win a championship? Pro tip, you would not at all. Next season, they're going to continue with their flawed concept developed in a wind tunnel that's not suitable for the purpose of these aerodynamic regulations. And they'll do the best they can and let Antonelli learn the ropes while they put all their resources into 2026, which I'm sure no other team has thought of.
That's the thing. Is not most of the teams on the grid just using 2025 as a year to get their driver lineup reconfigured? There's not going to be any huge development going into a car that's going to literally in its DNA change because, of course, there's these massive overhauls to the power unit, which will integrally alter the DNA of a Formula One car.
There is
It's
one
a thro-
team. There is
Don't
one team.
interrupt me. That's
There is
my
one
thing
team.
to do. I just
sorry, ma'am.
think there is not one team on the grid who is sat thinking, we are going to put everything into 2025. Not one.
Disagree. Right. So I'm interrupting to make a valid point that Ferrari have just spent £85 billion on a 40-year-old driver. They are going to put every single ounce of their effort into 2025. They might be the only top team that would sacrifice a little bit of this 2026 stuff. So I think Ferrari are throwing themselves absolutely at 2025. And I am a Lewis Hamilton fan, and I am now a lifelong Ferrari fan as well. This might not be true, and it might get to March and we'll realise how stupid and deluded I've been. But I have 3 months to bathe in delusion. I will be lathering myself up in delusion, Alex. And I invite you, Alex, to join me in that bath of delusion. Come on in.
I'm jumping in, mate.
It's slippery. It's slippery. We can just hang. We can have videos and mango. It's
Candles,
gonna be great. Yeah.
And no, the thing of Ferrari throwing everything at 2025 makes perfect sense, because how awesome would it be if Ferrari finally get a constructors win, and if they give Lewis his 8th title? It doesn't matter what then happens. They have given the greatest driver of all time his 8th world championship to take him a step forward. They've broken their duck, and it's the biggest publicity that they can possibly have. The whole thing about the whole finance on for Lewis and what they're paying Lewis. Well, you remember, only 1/4 of what they're paying Lewis they're actually paying to Lewis. The rest of it is all going to his funds and all the things that he backs and all that kind of stuff. It's philanthropy at its best.
But they've done this before with Sebastian Vettel.
But he's not anywhere near as good.
How dare you?
It's not.
Come
right.
on.
And
Right,
Hamilton would have
had
won
it
in
up to him.
2017, so there you go.
And 18.
Or
My
whatever it was.
my issue is they can't expect Lewis Hamilton to join the team and suddenly get back the killer instinct that he's been lacking in the past 3 seasons. And that for me is gonna he's not.
What did you not see that overtake? What killer instinct
Well,
is he exactly lacking?
He's an F1 driver who can drive an F1 car.
He came from
successfully.
16th to 4th. What more do you want?
Him to win a championship. Hello.
He's won
Hello?
18 championships.
I say this. I am a tifosi, and I actually have been Spanners for a while. Actually,
Me too.
So I'm better than you.
Lifelong fan here. Yeah, same.
Well, in my defense, my life is like a quarter
Yeah.
of the span of yours. I'm
wow.
trying my best.
Okay,
right?
I'll just walk off up here then. Great.
Oh, shots fired.
I think it'll be
Antonia,
interesting to
half.
see Ferrari's approach to having one of, if not the greatest drivers of all time, with them, who are one of, if not the greatest teams of all time.
Matt, we have
Yes.
failed to really talk about this race, which leads me to this question. Was it actually a good race? So I'm going to defend this track.
Sorry.
Not by much, not loads. I'm going to defend it for one corner, which I really, really love, and I've always loved. It's as you get past the 2 long straights, the DRS zones, then you go sort of left with a bit of a rubbish left-hander, and then there's a rubbish little kink. But then you've got the right-hander, and before you can get the steering straightened out, you have to brake hard into the hotel complex. And I think I'll just go with this with Alex. Like, surely there should be more off camber or off steering corners.
Turning while braking.
Turning while
corners.
braking. So when I hit the traffic lights before I go home, there's a right-hander, and if I want to shift the weight onto the outside wheel so that I can make sure I get the green
Your
light.
Renault Capture.
No, it's not even that. It's a Renault 2008 1.2 Eco engine. But I've had it since 2016, and I'm wary of the environment, and it's never going to die because I don't have a job anymore, so I don't have to drive anywhere. But like, I like taking that corner when the orange comes on. I go, oh well, I can brake late, but because I'm having to steer right first before I go left, the weight is on the left. F1 should have more corners where you're struggling to straighten the steering before the braking zone.
If I'm going to simplify this, the two hardest things about racing a car is steering
And being
braking.
sober. Oh, no,
And if
braking.
Steering and braking. If you then have to do both of those at the same time, it becomes exponentially more difficult.
Yeah,
Especially
it's a
because what you're
great
doing
corner.
especially what you're doing is you're putting extra load on the front tires, and you're causing yourself the ability to either lock up or just run wide.
But
And we want more of those types of corners.
generally you want that load there because it helps the car turn. But yes, there's 100% of tire grip, and splitting it correctly between braking and turning is the sort of ultimate skill test in a lot of ways for
Absolutely.
anyone driving a single-seater car.
Yeah, and Circuit of the Americas has a lot of corners like that as well. But no, this isn't a race that brings up a lot of good racing. So it feels like this was an exciting race. There was incidents, but is it a good race?
See, you ask me that, and that's a great question.
You told me to
I'm
ask
going
you
to
that.
argue that it was a good race that didn't seem like a good race because the winner was never really in doubt. The closest we got to excitement was Carlos Sainz undercutting Norris, and Norris then pushing to catch up. But the reality is, especially on the hard tire, which is the C3 for those of you playing at home, was that McLaren had extra pace on that tire. And so the only possibility was if Sainz had been close enough with the undercut to be ahead of Norris when Norris emerged from it. And even then, I think we can look at the McLaren and agree that it would have been inevitable that Norris would have passed him at some point. If you look at the gap to average chart, it just tells the story that they had the dominant car today. And with Norris, they had the driver who could absolutely manage it. So it wasn't exciting at the front, but the rest of it, we had the alternate strategy from Hamilton catching Russell at the end. That was a great story. We had the Leclerc coming from behind, Verstappen with the penalties, trying to make up places. There was really sort of a lot going on. And we had such a wide range of pit stops. We even had some people trying the two-stop, mostly unsuccessfully, except for Alonso.
Okay, so why didn't Ferrari try something? Ferrari?
What? What?
Just anything. Just
What?
do something.
Like
Okay.
giving both drivers their optimal strategy for finishing as high up in the order as they could.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I mean, it's boring, but that's actually, they managed to pull it off for both drivers.
Okay,
So
you make a good case with facts, but okay, for example, Leclerc didn't want to do a one-stop. Leclerc wanted a two-stop. So
Yeah.
why not have one of those drivers do something different and try and do it 15 laps out? Antonia, just do you share my frustration? Like Ferrari, they were trying to run their game plan, and a lot of times teams go, we're just going to do our own game and we'll hope that the other car falls off a cliff. But they didn't do anything to why settle for second and third.
I do and I don't share your frustration. Split strategies sometimes work because of the unpredictable nature of the race. Other times, one driver's on a good strategy, the other's on an awful one, and that's why they're so different, because one is a good strategy and one is objectively not. This is one of those races where it's tried and tested. You can foresee kind of what's going to be happening. A split strategy would have doomed one of their drivers, and who would that be? Carlos Sainz, who's leaving the team. It would have been totally unnecessary on him.
I mean, if only they thought to downshift and push the throttle to the floor, they certainly would have been faster.
It was right there. It was right there, and definitely Brad Pitt would have done that. And did you notice that they filmed a celebration scene? This is in Antonia's wheelhouse. Did you catch that they filmed both drivers celebrating on the podium?
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. So for those of you guys who didn't see it, right, they filmed for the... Also, being involved in the F1 world means this movie is going to have so many spoilers and we're going to know exactly what's going to happen in the movie, but whatever. So they film this with Brad Pitt on the top. They drag poor George Russell up from
Yes.
P5
Yeah, to
up
pretend.
onto the podium of a race that he hasn't podiumed on, and make him stand there in P3 with Charles Leclerc.
Was Leclerc
and do
there
this
as well? I
fake
thought it was
podium.
Leclerc. Oh my
Poor
God.
lad looked like he wanted to die, and the whole time they're spraying champagne.
It couldn't be more shown that movie is not for us.
I think it
And,
is for
and we
us.
definitely need to do a night in Colchester.
No, it is. No, 100% we do.
And a movie
You're
night.
all invited here.
I will say, like, having watched the Gran Turismo movie and now working in GT racing, like, I feel like that it's a similar kind of thing, right? It's a great film, awesome film, wildly inaccurate and frustrating.
Not certain great is the right word.
No,
I quite enjoyed it.
It's a
would
watchable
absolutely
movie.
The
go with
storytelling was
Antonia.
good, the acting
Bingo.
was good.
Archie
It was-
Because it's about the
Madekwe was a-
relationships of the characters and not just about accurately portraying a race.
I did at
And
least
that's the
finish
thing.
that, unlike the Ferrari movie, which I couldn't finish. It was horrendous.
But that's
was,
the thing. I think that's what we can expect with the F1 movie. It's about the concept of F1.
so I would recommend the rally movie that I saw as being amazing. But we're talking about F1 races here.
No,
That actually
no.
happens?
No. We need to just one more thing. Do
Okay.
we need to have a Missed Apex live audience watch along as well, and then a
Yes.
live review with Missed Apex people in the UK?
We won't be able to do a live watch along of the movie, but I think we should all go
No, we'll
to
all
your
go
house
watch the movie.
What-
No, we could do it
and
in
then
the
come
cinema.
back.
We could.
Like,
we could
let's all have a sleepover at Spanners' house.
You're more than
Everyone,
welcome.
wherever you are, I'll text you his personal address. We'll all go over there. It'll be like 2 a.m. in the morning. Everyone wear your like ski hoodies and like
No.
make sure that you look
Charge
as suspicious
entry.
as
Do,
possible.
do you promise
Bang
that?
on the windows.
Okay, as long as you promise not to tell any of the trolls or anything that have sent me incredibly.
They might be
threatening
really nice to
messages.
me though. They might not. I might have never seen a bad side to them. They might have been great to me.
Matt, we will do this, but continue with race stuff.
Well, race stuff is first. I want to answer your question about why Ferrari was so boring.
Yeah,
today.
and then we'll give out Antonia's home address in the show notes.
And then we can do that too, yes. But then we also have to talk about the other constructors battle that got wound up today that we haven't really talked about.
Oh,
at
the
all.
thrilling battle for P6.
Yes, indeed, because I want to rant about the Hulkenberg
Go for
penalty.
it. Yes,
some bit. But first, I want to answer your Ferrari question. It's very simple. It's because they might have actually won if something happened to Norris.
Yes.
They had a very strong incentive to be boring and conservative today because they actually had a stake in the outcome. If he'd gotten tangled with a back marker, if that engine had given up, if he'd had a puncture, suddenly maybe Ferrari wins. Like I said, it was only 13 points at the end of the day. So they couldn't afford to just throw caution to the wind and maybe one of the drivers gets the podium.
But also,
top step.
like you said, they're very reasonable to suggest that Lando might not have been able to convert that pole position based on his track record. It's without that win, like you said, it would have been very easily a Ferrari championship. And based on what's happened to Lando previously, that's a bet that I would have taken.
Okay,
Yeah,
guys.
no.
We're heading towards the sort of podium and the awards and stuff, and there's a few sort of any other business points that I would like to bring up. So this is the opportunity for the live chat in the Patreon chat as well. If there's anything you think we've missed, stick it in the live chat now. I've had got a couple here. Firstly, Stroll got done for track limits in the end, so he got a penalty, which as we know proves just how hard he was pushing. So for me, Lance Stroll, driver of the day, and then Doohan. I know I said keep it out of the wall, but he did look quite off the pace. Full race weekend. I know all the other drivers have had a full season, first race, but it was quite a bit off the pace.
Maybe Alpine knew that, though. That's might be why they forced Ocon out. And don't give me that it was mutual. No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
I do think that's probably why they put him in, knowing that he would be a little bit off and desperately needing him to get some experience in the car before it really mattered.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say it. I'm not convinced that Gasly and Ocon have had anything close to the same car the last few weekends, which, again, he's leaving, given the resource constraint at Alpine, not surprising. You'd be working with your driver that's staying next season. But I think Doohan's performance in that car kind of makes that point for me.
So Matt, I would take any opportunity to punch down to Ocon if I could, but I think it's.
But
actually...
I mean, you've seen how tall he is, right?
No,
I
but
think
also,
regardless, you're punching up. That's
I
what I'm
have
saying.
ladders. I've got a step ladder.
I mean, to be fair, I'd be punching up too. I mean, the guy is tall.
I have a step ladder. I never knew my real ladder.
Antonia might be able to punch him straight on because
I forgot Doohan was in the race twice.
There you go. Yeah.
That's how
Again,
how
as a rookie,
uneventful Doohan was. I
we
honestly
praised
twice.
Joe
I was
for
like, oh
this.
yeah, Doohan's did this.
So I know
Yes.
that I would like
And
to punch
Martin nearly
down
called
on
his dad's
Ocon.
day multiple times.
I would obviously love to punch down on Ocon just to upset Matt, but I think we know Ocon has had a heavier car, has not had the upgrades, and I'm certainly not going to judge Doohan on that. All I'm saying is it's a data point, and he kept it out of the wall. And I think keeping it out of the wall is more important than a massive performance because nobody is talking about Doohan. Do you know why? Because he kept it out of the wall. Loads of people are talking about Colapinto. Do you know why? Because he made best friends with Tech Pro. Ooh, look, Tech Pro. I wonder if it wants to be friends. And it's time for the podium of the final race of the F1 2024 season. A very, very uncontroversially long season. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I am saying it's way too long. I'm also saying I need more F1, and I'm desperate for the 2025 season to keep going. So if you're a Missed Apex listener, I would ask you a couple of things, apart from my full-on begging bowl of like, hey, come on, support us on Patreon. That's the only reason we're here. Patreon.com/Missed Apex. If you want F1 content through the winter, a lot of the podcasts that your friends will listen to give up because they're lazy and weak and they don't do content throughout the winter. So say to your friends, these guys try and do interesting, fun things during the winter because they love podcasting and they love F1. And we could not bear to stop podcasting throughout the winter. So we will be doing a show. We'll have a release every single Sunday, including over the holidays. So please tell your friends, Missed Apex Podcast. And if they like listening to our winter content, then maybe when the regular season comes in, they'll have already decided that they like being a part of the Missed Apex community and stay with us through the Australian Grand Prix and beyond. We have a great panel here. I love our rotating panel. We have a mix of people who have genuine careers in F1 and motorsport media. I don't know why I picked to focus in on Antonia there. And we have, washed up go-karters as well and mid musicians, but it's a really varied panel and I want you to follow all of them. Follow Alex, right? I give Alex a lot of crap because of his, aesthetically challenging face, right? When he makes videos around karting, when he puts those together, he puts so much time and effort into them. And even if you think they're rubbish, you have to at least appreciate that he's genuinely tried. Alex, what's your YouTube channel?
At Alex Van Gene Racing. I'm mostly proud of the one I put out this week, which is me driving a very, very fast go-kart around Rye House. And because Brad wasn't there, the wheels stayed on. So I actually got to do my session properly.
We haven't addressed this. We have not addressed this story of how Brad nearly killed you.
I think that's a really good topic for the
winter test.
But if you want to, you go into my YouTube and look for my 40th birthday video, and you see it all there.
I saw Alex. So yeah. I saw Alex in the wall, and I looked
before anyone else.
Yeah. I looked away, and I looked straight for your wife. I looked at your wife,
who wasn't looking.
She was.
They were focusing on Brad, who'd come into the pits with a broken front bumper, while I was like, I'm okay. I've had the biggest crash I've ever had in my life, but I'm fine.
So we'll have the link to your YouTube channel. I think it's a really. I love the work you're doing. Like as a sub thing outside of your normal professional life, it's such a great effort, and there's such good production values because you care. And I would not direct people to content made by people who don't care, and you do care. So go and follow Alex at ValexVanGin. There'll be a link there in the show notes.
And I'm just under 30 subs off of 1,000, which would be a massive milestone.
That is a massive milestone. So Alex, I'll ask you, because we like to start with a negative. I'll ask you first who you think missed the apex.
No, you missed the apex.
My missed the apex is a funny one because it's Martin Brundle. because
Oh.
Martin Brundle panicked that there was a car driving in the pit lane, but it wasn't. It was driving on the road next to the pit lane when George Russell was coming in for the pits. He went, "Oh my God, there's a car in the pit! Oh no, hang on, no, that's next to the track."
I've actually
That was the biggest fail of Martin Brundle. It's hilarious.
I've got a similar one. Ted Kravitz, who is my favorite person in F1 TV. Like, I absolutely adore Ted Kravitz. And
He's the best.
And he did a great interview with Brad Pitt about the F1 movie. And Brad Pitt seemed really, really genuine about his love of F1.
Happy.
And he said, I've been watching your segments to learn about it. And Ted was just, you could tell he was just like awestruck. And I've had that as an interviewer. Matt, you can be honest. You could tell, like, when I was speaking to like Jensen Button or like
Jensen.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard me so quiet when we were talking to
Juan Pablo Montoya? Yeah. So, like, being starstruck, like, you're not immune to it. There will be people who have done interviews with thousands of celebrities, and then they'll meet that one person and go, "Oh no, that has an effect."
And Brad was talking to him like he was a mate.
Yeah. Exactly.
And Ted was. I've never seen Ted so.
Well, I think he was I think he was so happy and just so like in awe and trying to enjoy it and let him enjoy it. And then Brad Pitt offered him a cameo, and he went, "Oh no, that would be terrible.
Very British.
That would be terribly
So
bothersome."
British.
And he go, "Oh no, that was too British. Please give Ted Kravitz a cameo in that movie." It was literally genuinely offered, and he was just too. He fluffed, man. He dropped the ball.
Also, on a commentator missed the apex, I've got to give one to Crofty because he called George the tyre whisperer, and even I laughed.
I can't stand it. I can't stand that, Alex. I can't stand that. Like, George Russell has so many good traits. Like, he's a real strong personality. He's a real fast driver. He's a battler in the corners. He's got passion. I love that.
He stands up for what's right.
Yeah, but I know we haven't addressed the Russell Verstappen beef because it was 8 days ago. It's been covered to death. But Russell's got a lot of things, but he is notoriously not quite at that top level when it comes to tyre wear. Okay, so that's your Missed Apex Award. We've got Antonia Rankin. Antonia,
Hi.
you often make life very, very difficult for me. You are an agent of chaos. But when I look at your social media accounts, I was complimenting you earlier on one particular post, which is showing off your prowess as a pit lane reporter. I would love the link to that video if you could give that to Matt. I just need everyone to see how much you are dominating that space and how much you are the best version of yourself right now.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just really flipping love my job so much, man.
We can tell.
I'm so cool. And I was always such a loser. And I feel like I have done it for all of the loser freak weirdos out there.
All
you
the
know,
nerds.
I don't know. I put up this really emotional post, like with really heartfelt words, and it seems well received, and people didn't point and laugh. So
I loved it. Me and my family,
thumbs
we
up.
saw that post and we just went, "Wow, Ranko is absolutely smashing it." So I want the link to that specific social media post so people can see what you're doing, but also follow Antonia on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You are a queen of the verticals, and I have gained inspiration from you when doing my verticals as well. Who missed the apex for you?
Can I say two people?
You can.
Who I guess DOS became Uno for this missed apex? Kelly Piquet and Max Verstappen.
They missed the apex.
Well, 2 became 1, became 3.
Oh, how's that a
I
mistake?
think he very clearly hit the apex.
Oh my God, you're like...
Let me talk. Oh my God, right, because
How is
I
this
feel
the missed
I am
apex?
just concerned that Max might have robbed us of himself
Yeah.
in so creating the beautiful gift that they have, and very happy for them. Huge congratulations. I think it could have been the worst thing he's ever done for his career.
Yeah, in my experience, he's going to gain about 1.5 stones, so that's going to hold him back.
At least 2/10.
Well, look at Magnussen. Magnussen's got 18 kids, and that's been a huge drop-off in form, hasn't it? Vettel's got 3 kids.
The only thing Lewis hasn't done.
Yeah, Vettel had 3 kids and was like, "Do you know what would be really good? A hotel for bees."
Yeah, the bees, I think, sank him.
That might have been it. Yeah, I do think there should be a limit to a race driver's career. Max did himself say, "I would want to retire before becoming a father." So let's see. The funniest thing I've seen this week around that is on the F1 subreddit, where somebody said that Max Verstappen's gender reveal will be either punting off a
Pink
blue
Alpine.
or a blue Williams.
Yes. That was pretty hilarious.
So he punted
That
off
made me
a
laugh.
papaya McLaren, which I assume means
It
that
is
they're
like, yeah,
gender
go
neutral.
figure that one
yeah.
out.
Okay, excellent. Matt, hi.
Hello.
Thank you for your work this season. People
Oh,
don't
yeah,
appreciate what
always.
you do behind the scenes as well. I can barely string a sentence together, so all show notes and summaries are by you. And not only that, but you are an ever-present, reliable source that I know that in most cases I've got Matt Trumpets here to bounce off. Thankfully, we've got a huge squad, so time off is a very easy thing. But I would like to thank you for being an ever-present part of Missed Apex. You're not the best one, obviously,
No.
but people should still follow you at MattPT55 on Twitter and on the other one, the Blue Sky. And in the background here, I have Smut, which is written by your amazing wife.
Lovely and amazing wife. Very talented she is.
Family-friendly show, but we're still hocking this book. I don't know.
My wife
Yes.
read it. She enjoyed it.
Really?
This is what I'm saying. You know, it is the gift giving season.
It's called The Fast and the Reckless, and it's available to buy internationally, so you should buy it for your spouse. That link will be...
Just sold the Brazil rights.
Wow.
It's going
There
to
you go.
Portugal and Brazil. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
Portuguese.
Yeah, it's Portugal. It's huge in Polish book talk right now, which I don't understand that phrase, but maybe Antonia does. But apparently that's a thing.
Really?
And, yeah.
Okay. Good. And Matt, who missed the Apex for you?
Well, I've been wanting to talk about this all show, so I'm not really going to answer directly your question. And this is why you keep me around, because I can annoy you into greatness. But for me, Hulkenberg's penalty so just to explain it, he completely broke the rules and
Right.
should have gotten a penalty.
And you're going to complain. Okay.
But the reason he broke the rules is because they have allowed people to drive as slowly as they want in the pit exit. And their garages were farthest, I believe, or second farthest. And he was going out to set his final lap and encountered two cars going about 2.5 miles an hour. And that's like 0.007 of a kilometer an hour, as far as I understand the conversion factor. And so he did what he had to do in order to settle out, which is go round them. They were going slowly to create a gap in the pit exit under the hotel. He passed them, set his lap, and he wound up going all the way to fourth in qualifying before he got this penalty. And what I'm going to say is, fair enough if you want to say you can't pass people on pit exit, but then you also need to set a minimum speed limit, because it is embarrassing to see Formula One cars driving at 3 miles an hour on the pit exit and everyone piled up behind them. It needs to be taken away because it's eventually going to be a safety problem.
Psh, safety. Who said anything about being safe?
Tech Pro.
we wanna build-
sponsors Missed Apex
No,
podcast.
we want to build F1 for combat. Hi, Spanners. Please follow me at Spanners Ready on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, but TikTok, because that's giving me the biggest dopamine hit at the moment, and I'm having a lot of fun on there. My Missed Apex award, though, is going to go to Bottas. Just a couple of big mistakes in your final race. I think he had an opportunity to go out on a high. He did everything else brilliantly. He's PR'd brilliantly. And you go, why did you have to take out two cars? You know, I'm not going to make any judgment about how hard it is to avoid locking up the brakes on that, but it didn't look great. So I wish Bottas all the best for the future, but he definitely missed the Apex for me. And now we get to end on a positive. So quick fire. What was your thing of the weekend? Antonia, a good thing, a nice positive, fluffy butterfly of a thing.
It's got to go to Brad Pitt for winning, or Sunny Hayes, I should say, for winning
Well,
the
we
race.
don't know, do we? We don't
Came
know
back
anyone.
from a difficult time in Vegas. I don't know if you saw, he actually had a bad accident that he
actually had a
passed
crash,
out
yeah.
from. So
Yeah.
strength to him, real comeback story, brilliant job. Good job.
They
Well
also
done.
filmed, though, Idris, who's the other actor?
No, not Idris Elba.
No.
No.
What? Oh, is it Elba? No, come on, who's the other? Come on, someone help me out. What's the name of the other actor that's going to be in the F1 movie? I know that at least one of the words is common with Idris Elba. So he's either Idris something or Elba something. Alex is going to rescue
Isn't that
me.
where they imprisoned Napoleon, Elba?
You are closely right. Damson Idris.
Thank
So
you. Not a million miles away, am I?
I wasn't going to say it was Idris Elba because I know you didn't mean Idris Elba.
I wasn't just naming black actors. Thank you. Cheers for that. So okay. Well,
Now everyone thinks you were.
so yes, they did film 2 scenes with alternative endings to avoid spoilers because we don't want to all go in there knowing that Sonny Hayes won the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Alex Van Gien, who hit the apex for you?
I can't let it go on Lewis's last weekend with Mercedes without saying that move on the last lap, that final stint was absolutely perfect. And that move on George, okay, it was his teammate and George was asked to make sure he didn't have any contact. He wasn't asked to let him go.
He wasn't, though.
He went round the outside. I didn't expect him to make that stick. So
Mercedes had
French kiss.
Okay.
Well done, Lewis.
Oh, no.
I will miss Lewis at Mercedes. It's annoying because I drive a Mercedes and I mentioned to my wife we now need to upgrade to a Ferrari, and I don't know how I'm going to make that work.
Okay, that's
financially.
worse than
Didn't get the same
Antonia's.
reaction, did it?
That's worse than Antonia's. As an internationally renowned pit lane reporter that's been to Williams a bunch of times, that I drove a Mercedes and I'm thinking of getting a Ferrari.
I mean, I'm not going to get a
Fancy.
Ferrari ever
Look how fancy you are.
until you start paying me royalties.
And I don't want to like poo-poo that, but also Mercedes had such a pro-Hamilton agenda this week. Like they really did. They wanted a big Hamilton story, and Russell will have been told in advance, if he's anywhere near you, conveniently pull offline. Like if you need to hit that Tech Pro, you hit that. You eat Tech Pro. For your dinner today is Tech Pro.
The next episode of Missed Apex isn't sponsored by Tech Pro. Something's gone wrong.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying, if I fixed boxing matches for a living, a George Russell might be a good person to have around.
No, EJ, Morgan Freeman is not in the F1 movie live chat. Come on. It's not
Ouch.
Lawrence. It's not Lawrence Fishburne either. Matt, who hit the apex for you?
All right. You know what? I'm going to go for Lewis Hamilton. But it had
Nice.
nothing to do with the outside move of turn 6 to take the place away from
turn
Russell.
9.
Was it 9? I
Yep.
thought it was 6.
Nope.
9?
9.
Fine. Whatever. Yeah, fine. Whatever. Numbers are numbers.
9? It's first 9.
2 reasons. One, on the Thursday, I believe.
Yeah.
On the Thursday, I believe, he took the time to take everyone on his side of the garage for a hot lap around the circuit. So talk about class. I think that was super classy of him. And the second reason is I saw him at the end of the race doing individual photos with everyone in the
Yes,
garage.
yeah.
And I just got to say, chapeau to that. That was a classy thing. And I was, say what you will about Lewis. I know not everybody loves him. That was class. And I was impressed.
So
It
mine.
was-
Oh, go on, Alex.
It was a beautiful moment, and especially the hot lap he did with Bono was absolutely fantastic. And I do sit there and I see these things. I'm like, how does anyone not like Lewis? He's like, okay, early career, he was a petulant little pain in the backside sometimes, but
He was 20 once, yeah.
exactly. And 21-year-olds are terrible people.
So proof here with Antonia.
Oh
I
no,
will
I
make
forgot
you
Antonia was
miserable, and I'll
21.
do it with a smile on my face.
But Lewis, over the last 10 years, has just been like such an advocate for everything that is good in the world, and I just don't understand why people don't like him, because he just does all the right things. And just watching him do those, even did a photo with one of the cameramen.
That's good. You can do that. Okay, I've got my final one. So mine, and I don't actually know how you guys feel about this person, but mine is gonna be Zach Brown. So if you remember back in like 1966 when Zach Brown took over, the thing we used to say about the McLaren was that it was like a default car because there was no sponsors on it. It was like the default livery. They had hardly anyone on there, and he took that speciality. And he's built a team. He's brought sponsors in. They had so many sponsors at one point that they had to have like a revolving screen. They had a screen that changed so that they could get all the sponsors in. And I think, like, he is definitely Mr. McLaren right now. Like, he is the Ron Dennis. He's driving that forward. It's a really impressive thing. Not only that, but he is also a very personal person. He is very generous when it comes to interviews. He's entertaining. When he talks, he understands that it's the viewer's time that he's taking up. Sometimes you get very mumbled answers from team principals. He's like, no, I understand I'm on TV. I understand this is entertainment. I understand that I have to be generous with that. And then when you see him on the top step with the constructors thing, pure passion, pure raw passion. I don't think you can act that. That meant something. And I love that passion in F1.
Don't forget, he started out racing. He raised his own money to pay for his own carts. He's a racer at heart. So yeah,
he won $3,000 on a game show that paid for his first go-kart.
I'm not sure exactly how much I buy that story. That does sound like rich kid fiction to me, but it's a great apocryphal tale. Antonia.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up. I was sorry. I was just filling up my little mic scaffold.
I didn't have my hand up.
It's reached the point in the podcast
all three
where
of us thought
I'm
you
not
had your
mentally
hand up.
present.
Oh my god!
Your hand is
Spanners
so
has 2
technically
people
up.
on here with ADHD and wonders why we get
I'm
things
sorry.
wrong.
I check out mentally. It's what I do. Love you guys, not personal.
No, I mean, when you're on, but sometimes you sort of power down like a screensaver. So thank you very much to my panel, Antonia, Screensaver Rankin. Go and click in the show notes below and follow her. Please go and follow failed Carter Alex Van Gene, who does some amazing TikTok videos. What? Is that a success? Finishing 3 places behind Brad in your last series?
In my first ever series for a 40-year-old bloke who lost 26 kilos to get in a race
It's
car.
a
Bill
great
one for his first
story.
time. Yes, it bloody is.
Go and follow Alex. Follow that story. Even follow Matt, the oldest one. Yeah, the one least likely to be here in 10 years' time. I still think he's worth a follow at MattPT55. And please, of course, follow the show by supporting us at Missed Apex on Patreon, patreon.com/Missed Apex. We will do a proper season review midweek, and then for the rest of the off season we'll give you content on a Sunday, and we will be delivering that with glee because we are not restricted by the races, we're not restricted by the news cycle, so we get to be a little bit creative. If you want more spanners, follow me as well in my science show. I do a weekly science show with Dr. Andrew Holding, so search for Cambridge Science. There's a Formula E review podcast. The season kicked off and it was dramatic and fun. The MotoGP guys are doing fantastic as well. All of these links will be in the show notes below. So until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. Oh, I'm still on screen. Look at that. I didn't mean to be. It's been a long season.
An entire accident, you're still on screen and none of us.
More spanners. How can that be bad? Do you remember in the long ago when I used to shuffle papers like the newsreaders did?